Can I actually stick to this one secret habit for 30 days and see if it truly changes my life forever? It's a question many of us have quietly asked ourselves, because deep down, most people are searching for that one thing, that one change, that one breakthrough that can turn their life in a better direction. We imagine success comes from big, dramatic changes, a completely new routine, a burst of motivation, or a moment where everything finally clicks. But the truth is usually much simpler. Real change rarely comes from giant leaps. Instead, it comes from small actions repeated consistently over time. Think about a tiny crack in a dam. At first, it seems harmless, but slowly, water pushes through, pressure builds, and eventually, that small crack can lead to a massive flood. Habits work the same way. Small behaviors might seem insignificant in the moment, but when repeated daily, they can quietly reshape your life. The problem is that most of us approach change the wrong way. We try to transform everything at once. We join gyms, start strict diets, create big productivity plans, and promise ourselves that this time things will be different. For a few days, motivation feels powerful. We wake up excited, we feel disciplined, we believe we are finally becoming the person we want to be. But then something happens. Energy fades, life gets busy, and the routine begins to slip. Eventually, we fall back into our old patterns, and when that happens, many people blame themselves. They think they lack discipline, they think they aren't strong enough, they believe something is wrong with them. But the truth is far less discouraging. The real issue isn't your motivation, and it's not your willpower. The real issue is how habits actually work inside the brain. Scientists estimate that nearly 70% of our daily behavior is habitual. That means most of the things we do throughout the day happen almost automatically. We wake up the same way, check our phones the same way, eat at similar times, follow familiar routines. Without even realizing it, our habits quietly guide our actions. Which means if our habits stay the same, our results usually stay the same too. But here's the exciting part. Because habits shape so much of our lives, even one small habit can begin to shift everything. And the habit we're talking about today might seem simple, but its long-term effects can be incredibly powerful. That habit is daily journaling. Before you dismiss it as something small, let's understand why it works. Inside your brain are neural systems responsible for forming habits. One of the key systems involved is something called the basal ganglia. These neural circuits help control patterns of behavior. They decide when we start actions and when we stop them. Scientists often refer to these as go and no-go systems. Some people find it easy to start new behaviors but struggle to stop bad ones. Others can avoid bad habits easily but struggle to take action on good ones. Most of us fall somewhere in between, but there is another powerful system involved in habit formation. It's called procedural memory. Procedural memory is the memory of how to perform a sequence of actions. Think about riding a bicycle. When you first learned, it required focus and effort. But over time, it became automatic. Your brain stored the sequence of movements. Now you can ride without thinking about every step. Habits work the same way. When a behavior is repeated often enough, your brain begins to store it as an automatic routine. Once that happens, it no longer requires motivation. It simply becomes part of your daily rhythm. There was a simple trick scientists discovered that can help start this process. It involves visualization, but not the kind of visualization most people imagine. You don't need meditation music or a quiet room. You simply imagine the exact sequence of actions involved in the habit. For example, if you plan to journal in the morning, imagine the process. You wake up, walk to your desk, open your notebook, pick up your pen, write the first sentence. This simple mental rehearsal activates many of the same brain circuits used during the real action, and research shows it increases the likelihood that you'll actually perform the habit. But there is another idea that makes habits even stronger. Scientists call it task bracketing.
Every habit has 3 stages: a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Your brain naturally marks the moment before the habit begins and the moment after it ends. These markers create a mental frame around the behavior. Over time, this frame becomes so familiar that the habit becomes automatic. Think about brushing your teeth. Most people brush their teeth every morning, not because they feel motivated, but because it's already part of their routine. Even if they're tired, even if they slept poorly, they still do it. The habit is deeply embedded. Wake up, walk to the bathroom, brush teeth, done. No decision required. Now imagine using that same automatic system for habits that improve your life. Reading, exercise, reflection, planning, or journaling. Journaling may seem simple, but its effects are powerful. Writing slows down your thoughts. It forces your brain to organize ideas. It helps you notice patterns in your thinking. When you journal regularly, you begin to understand yourself better. Your goals become clearer. Your decisions become more thoughtful. Your emotions become easier to manage. In many ways, journaling becomes a conversation with your own mind, and that conversation can reveal insights you might otherwise ignore. Consider the example of Sarah. Sarah was a busy entrepreneur. Her days were filled with meetings, deadlines, and constant pressure. Her mind never seemed to slow down. Even after work, her thoughts kept racing. She often felt overwhelmed and mentally exhausted. One day, she decided to try something small. Every morning, before starting work, she spent 10 minutes journaling. At first, it felt awkward. Some days, she didn't know what to write. Other days, she repeated the same worries again and again. But she kept showing up. 10 minutes every morning. After a few weeks, something surprising happened. Her thoughts became clearer. She noticed patterns in her stress. She started identifying problems earlier, and instead of reacting emotionally, she began to make calmer decisions. Her productivity improved. Her relationships improved. Even her sense of direction became stronger. Nothing dramatic happened overnight, but small insights added up over time. This is the quiet power of small habits. They don't feel life-changing in the moment, but repeated daily, they slowly reshape how we think and act. Scientists have also discovered something interesting about breaking bad habits. Most people believe they must stop a bad habit completely before replacing it. But research suggests another strategy. The moment right after a bad habit happens is a powerful opportunity. For example, imagine you're trying to focus on work, but you pick up your phone and start scrolling. You realize what you're doing and feel frustrated. Instead of just putting the phone down, you immediately perform a small positive habit. Maybe you drink a glass of water. Maybe you take a few deep breaths. Or maybe you write a quick thought in your journal. This creates a new pattern in your brain. The bad habit becomes linked to a positive behavior. Over time, your awareness increases. You start recognizing the habit sooner, and eventually it becomes easier to change. All of this reveals something important. Habits operate beneath motivation. They quietly guide your behavior every day. And when you intentionally design those habits, you slowly begin to design your life. That's why today's challenge is simple. For the next 30 days, try journaling for just 10 minutes each day. You don't need to write perfectly. You don't need fancy notebooks or apps. Just a pen, a blank page, and honesty. Write about your thoughts. Write about your goals. Write about what you're grateful for. Write about what's bothering you. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consistency. Because over time, clarity grows. Your thinking becomes sharper. Your decisions become stronger. And slowly, your life begins to move in a new direction. Sometimes, the biggest transformations don't start with massive actions. Sometimes they begin with one small habit. 10 minutes, a pen, a blank page, and the willingness to reflect. So try it for 30 days. See what happens. You might be surprised by what you discover, because this tiny habit might just become the one thing that changes everything.